Thank you so much for the introduction, and thanks for having us. I'm Kirsten. That's Robert, if you couldn't figure it out. And we're gonna launch a presentation and walk you through it today. So we're gonna start this off. There's kind of three sections of this. We're gonna take you through a little bit of just an intro to us, what we do, our company Brigade, so that you understand what our expertise is and what we're kind of bringing, you know, where our point of view is coming from. And then we're going to show you some examples of how you do this. And we're also going to take you through some work we created for One Berkshire that can show you how we activate some of the suggestions we make in this document. So I'm just going to start out with I'll talk a little bit about me and then hand it over to Robert. My name is Kirsten, and I am the founder and executive creative director of Brigade. I started this in 2006. I bother to mention this because it is, I think some of our capabilities are the culmination of both my experience. I worked in Boston and San Francisco in big advertising agencies on very big accounts like Dunkin' Donuts and Electronic Arts video games and things like that. So very much the advertising side of things, which is focused on conversions, which we put it there, right? We want to make sure how many eyeballs are getting on your advertisements. But I also came up through the design world, which is much more graphic design focused on craft and fine art. And so I believe the sort of sweet spot for Brigade is that we are both that combination of that fine art craftsmanship, that one of a kind, paired with sort of the advertising know-how and making sure we're talking to our audience.
And I am Robert. I'm the creative strategy director at Brigade. Been with Brigade since 2012. And I feel that Kirsten just set me up really successfully, so thank you. A blend of art and science. I have a somewhat untraditional background in that I studied art, formally, art and anthropology, and then I went on to work in politics, and then I was doing documentary work for some nonprofits and NGOs like Partners in Health down in Haiti. So I've always been left brain, right brain, really wanting to connect the tissue between the creative world and more strategy, thinking through how data is used and how those two things come together. That's kind of my specialty at Brigade. Do a lot of creative direction through that lens of, who are we trying to talk to? How do we speak with them most successfully? And I think it's why it's a really natural fit that when One Berkshire approached us to, potentially give a conversation about millennials and branding and all that kind of stuff, this was right up my alley because I'm also a millennial. So careful what you say.
So we put this up here. We're actually located in between Amherst and Northampton, still Western Mass folk. And our team is actually 17 people right now, and we call ourselves branding and design experts. We talk about why we're united by the same goal because I think we all love where we live. And for us, doing this big city work in a small town has been really a unifying force for our whole group. And because of that, we really understand that through our clients' success comes ours. So that commitment is really true to our team. We have an extraordinary team of people. We call ourselves Brigade. This is just sort of a little top level more about us. Some of the things that our clients say about us is that we're incredibly collaborative. We don't have egos. Probably that goes along with this being a woman-owned company. We do very much while we work on short-term assignments for some of our clients. They may come in with just a certain project. While we're doing these short-term assignments, we are continually looking at the long-term success of their business. So, making sure that those short-term efforts are having a longer-term impact. And we also have a very non-traditional staff with a fine art bent. I've hired people who are traditional fine artists and things like that as well, which really gives us a unique spin on our work. We have over 100 awards, which is in our industry, sort of markers of best in class. It is something that while winning awards, our clients making sure that their business objectives are obviously number one. But if we can do it and win an award for design, we're very proud of that. There's a lot of online aggregators these days to help you find design and branding firms. We're very highly rated. We are we got Ad Age Best Place to Work in 2017. And we have some unusual long-term relationships. I don't think that you see this in a lot of our industry, but Svedka Vodka has been with us since 2006. They came to us as a startup vodka firm. They're now #1 vodka in the US. And so a very long-term stretch for that. And I think that is a testament to our relationships and our work.
Mm-hmm.
Again, some of the awards, we talked about this. We create work that gets noticed. So we're very proud of this. All of our team members are winning awards too. It's not just a handful, it's everybody. Everybody does extraordinary work. We just most recently won a 2021 gold winner for some work we did in the nonprofit space for bat conservation.
And really, when awards look that cool, you want to win them. So why not show them off, right? Come on.
All right, so I'm just talking in the beginning. Robert's the smart one, and he's going to talk the second part, so you can be relieved. This is our specialties. We talk about, we are the things that people come to us for: branding and packaging, where people want to kind of look at their brand through the lens of packaging. We also look at people's brands through the lens of maybe a website or an e-commerce site. And then we also do ongoing retail and promotions where you're trying to increase traffic for a certain window. How do I, entice people to keep coming back? So those are sort of our specialty spaces.
All right, so that's us. And don't believe Kirsten when she says I'm the smart one, because you're about to see her be way smarter than me throughout this entire presentation. And that's not just because she's my boss, but because it's true. Anyways, enough about Brigade. Let's talk millennials. And a fun anecdote is that I refused to acknowledge that I was a millennial for the first half of my life. It is because I grew up in a world in which millennials had a lot of baggage around them. And so I was thinking, oh, that could never be me. Well, it's me, and here we are. But look, on paper, it's very easy to understand millennials if you're just going to look at facts, right? They're born from 1981 through 1996. That means they're 25 through 40. So if you're still picturing a millennial as the teenager who just graduated college, or the teenager in their parents' basement or something like that, that is now Gen Z. So they have that baggage. Thank you, Gen Z. But the really big thing about millennials is that they were raised with the internet and raised with a lot of technology that other generations had to learn rather than grow up amongst. And I think that's really led to a lot of the innovation and a lot of the trends that we've seen with millennials that has over time made them somewhat of an intimidating audience to approach for a lot of people, even though I think what you're going to see today is that they're actually not that different from other generations. The wild thing is that as of 2019, millennials are now the largest generation in the country. There's 72 million millennials rather than baby boomers. So you'll either see that as terrifying or a ray of hope or what have you. That's just how things are right now. When it comes to some considerations that we think everyone should make concerning millennials and how you're going to approach your own audience, specifically if you're trying to brand towards millennials or market towards them, there's some fundamental ones that we think are really important. The first one is that they're very, very educated. 34% of millennials have a bachelor's degree. 24% of baby boomers had a bachelor's degree. That is a huge increase. If you compare that with the silent generation, I want to say the silent generation was 11% bachelor's degree. So there's been this incredible trend upwards in education, and that means a lot for the savvy of your audience and what is attracting them. And just looking forward, Gen Z's percentage is going to be way higher than millennials. So they're also inheriting that. Another thing to keep in mind about millennials is that they're value driven. And look, everybody loves a good deal. That's not what this is talking about. We're talking about the kind of values that companies can have in terms of a mission statement or representing good values that other consumers associate with. So more than half of millennial women say they purchase items based on a brand's values and stance on issues. And 70% of all millennials say they go out of their way to buy a brand that they feel good about. And both of those taken in tandem are incredibly powerful things for any brand to keep in mind. in terms of how to attract this audience. And then the last thing that we wanted to highlight in terms of just general considerations and behavior is that I think early on, millennials got this reputation for being a little bit brand promiscuous. There's this thought process that they would always, one, go towards the cheapest X, or go for the shiniest thing. And as time has kind of played out and we've had more time to kind of measure things, it turns out that millennials are a very loyal generation. 60% of millennials say that they've had a relationship with the same brand for 10 plus years. And really, just to highlight that last sentence, 70% of millennials will go out of their way to buy and keep buying a brand that they feel good about. So those are really, really powerful things you can use to turbocharge how you're attracting the millennial audience. But that all being said, everyone's still terrified of millennials for some unknown reason. Look, everybody's looking for advice on how to talk to millennials. The thing to remember with millennials is they're just like you and me. We just grew up in a different environment, just like we all grow up in different environments. There's a lot of advice that's going out there, some of it really terrible, some of it really excellent. What we did in this is we kind of narrowed it down to some of the most common advice you're going to hear with how to talk to millennials. And then we're going to break that down into what we think that common advice actually means, and then how we would actually apply it ourselves. So the buzzwords and the advice that you're going to hear around talking to millennials is to be authentic, to be shareable, and to be unique. If I could have a nickel for every time somebody said be authentic, just in general, I would be so wealthy. I wouldn't be a millennial anymore. Anyways, what we think these mean are, be authentic means to be real, consistent, and true to yourself as a brand. Don't try to project another image. Be shareable. That means you should be memorable, be brag worthy with what you're creating, and anticipate that. And be social friendly, both social media friendly and, being able to be shared on social media friendly. And then when people say to be unique, that means to have a purposeful narrative and a thoughtful aesthetic. And so we think these are the most common buzzwords and the most frequent advice you're going to get with millennials. You've probably heard it before. It's going to be repeated in different ways. But the thing about millennials is that these are specific accelerants for them, those three things we just went through. But the way you pay them off is the same for millennials as it is with other generations. We are all the same human beings that are digesting the same content. It's just a matter of point of view. So what we have put together, and Kirsten, you should speak more about this, but what we've put together as an agency is this formula, which is the keys to resonating with your consumer to create trust and loyalty.
Mm-hmm. And this is what we've spent the last 15 years working on all these clients and looking at our work, trying to figure out for ourselves what our own positioning is and how we talk about our own agency and how we sell us. And the things that we really believe and where we find that we're working with the right clients is things like that, is that we work with people who really understand that being one of a kind is important and value it. And for us, that's how you stand out. That's how you stand out from the crowd. You're distinctive and one of a kind, right? And that, as we get more and more into, I don't know if you guys have seen the article on blands, but we're looking at a really cookie cutter, download stuff off the internet type of time period. So being distinctive and one of a kind becomes incredibly vital for any brand that's trying to stand out. That's number one. Number two, having a consistent look, voice, and set of values. There's research out there. They actually talk about the science behind muscle memory, and why consistency for a brand becomes vital in building that muscle memory. And it is also vital in you building trust. Because when you start to become inconsistent, or you don't worry about the coupon lining up with the billboard you've put out there, you're in deep trouble. Everybody sees it and they do process it on some level. And that erodes trust. And then the last one is engaging your audience. It's funny because all my little pictures and slides are over the type and I'm missing a word, which is funny. But engage your audience, and making sure that we call it a touch point, but anywhere someone touches your brand, making sure that it's consistent, and then making sure it's relevant to that exact touch point. So if you're doing something in a retail store, be processing that you're in a retail store. You need to process the fact that there's different generations looking at this piece, et cetera. So really think about where you are when you have that touch point. So we talk about consistency. We're talking about consistency of sort of brand elements and of aesthetic and your language. But then you're having these interfaces and these touch points where you're having to pivot a little bit to acknowledge where you are and who you're speaking to.
Mm-hmm. And again, even though those are, that more top level equation for how this works for any brand, you can see exactly how that millennial audience will fold directly into this. Be unique. It means build a distinctive one of a kind identity and brand. Be authentic. Have a consistent look, a voice, and a set of values. And be shareable. Engage your audience at every relevant touch point in a way that's true to your brand. You don't want to be the brand trying to share your Instagram post over TikTok. It's going to go really poorly because people are going to very quickly sniff out that like you just cross-posted, and that's so gross to millennials and Gen Z, so don't get me started there. But it's all about being relevant and just being true to yourself. And I think this is a really powerful equation we have found over time. And so what we want to do, I think, on the coming slides is kind of show you how this comes to life in several different ways through our own clients and the national examples. And then what we're also going to do at the end of this, once we've kind of gone through that, is we're going to take you on a deeper dive relevant to the Berkshires specifically, which will show you kind of how this all comes to be and how you can do it yourself.
Yeah, and I hope people feel relieved by this. I mean, this is tried and true, approaches to branding and marketing. And so it's like, there's not magic pixie dust. There's just being fully aware of where you are and who you're speaking to is the key here. Mm-hmm. In no way being tone deaf to any of that. Mm-hmm.